Welcome everyone. So I think we'll get going. Good morning and welcome to whichever part of the world you're joining us from. And so in this session, we'll talk about building a team to build a large-scale Azure solution. So by way of introduction, my name is Paul Maher, and I'm a general manager here at Microsoft in the industry experiences team, sitting within our Azure engineering team. And so today I'll basically talk for maybe about 40 minutes. I have some content just to sort of share my perspective, hopefully get the creative juices going on the topic. And after about 45 minutes, we'll break at the end for Q&A. But feel free ongoing to, as you see topics or questions you have, please put them in the Q&A window. And I have my colleague Scott Seeley, who's here with me, and he'll try and answer the questions ongoing. And I say at the end, we'll leave sort of 15 minutes or so just to go in a little bit deeper on the topics. And you can also see here, if you want to get in contact with me post the event, feel free to reach out to me at paulmaher@microsoft.com. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So there you can see where you can find me on LinkedIn and also my Twitter handle. So with that, let's kick off. And as I say, I'll push forward with a little bit of content, and then we'll get into the Q&A at the end. But please do, in the moment, feel free to ask questions in the live Q&A, and Scott will jump in and try and answer questions, and I'll address them at the end also. So, I mean, the overarching theme for the session here today is really to share my perspective on moving to the cloud, what I've learned building teams and products, and I've been in and around sort of cloud for quite a while. A little bit of introduction to myself. As mentioned, I sit within our Azure engineering team here at Microsoft. At the moment, I'm focused on helping Microsoft partners digitally transform by moving to the cloud and also to our commercial marketplace. And we'll talk a little bit more about the commercial marketplace later on if you're not familiar with that. And dating myself a little bit, I've been involved in the cloud since 2005. Back in the days, really sort of talking to analysts about this thing called the cloud and how it's the future. And then fast forward today, I've been involved in building probably some of the largest solutions on the cloud today, on the Microsoft Azure cloud, and working with some of the lots of companies across the world on helping them move to the cloud. So you could say I'm all in on the cloud. And so with that, just kind of a quick snapshot of what we'll cover today. I'm going to break it into part one, part two, and as mentioned, sort of Q&A at the end. So part one, I'm just going to talk a little bit in terms of, if you hear nothing else, here's sort of what my key learnings, if you will, key takeaways. One of the biggest things that comes up, of course, is what's the motivation to move to the cloud. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about cloud and the benefits of cloud, just to sort of level set, because that's one of the key really sort of knowledge learnings that's going to be important, whether you're starting your journey on the cloud or you're already in the cloud. But being sort of well informed on the benefit of the cloud, the motivation to move to the cloud is super important. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and sort of at a macro level, how cloud data and AI is really helping drive transformation in the cloud. And we'll hear a little bit of what the analysts are saying as well. And then part two, I'll dig in a little bit more, talking from my real world experiences of running engineering organizations, building software solutions on the cloud, working with partners and customers on their move to the cloud. I'll share some of the sort of my sort of key nuggets and takeaways, hopefully to be able to pass on to you to help you on your journey to the cloud. So with that, let me keep moving forwards. And so let's start with what's point of mind for you. So as mentioned, as we go along, feel free to ask questions in the live event Q&A section, and then we'll cover the follow-up questions at the end. So please, in the moment, feel free to ask questions. Scott from my team is there. So let's start with what are sort of really the summary points from my personal journey to the cloud, having worked on lots of cloud solutions. So let me pull out some of the things from the get-go that, if you hear nothing else from today, I think are sort of some perhaps obvious statements, but really important for you to be aware of. So number one, as you think about your journey from onto the cloud, whether that be you're starting that journey, you're building a new organization, you're building a team, you're thinking about how to get to the cloud, to perhaps you're more advanced to, even if you're on the cloud today, I'll share some of my perspectives of hopefully learnings and failings as well, to help set you all up for success and help you be super successful as you go on your own personal journey with your teams and with your companies to the cloud. So number one, I'd kick off is it's really important, as with any project, that you have the right level of sponsors. So, fundamentally, when you think about, I'm a big believer that it's really important to have a business reason, a business motivation, a business stakeholder for projects. Technology-driven projects usually are fraught with potential failure just because of not having the sponsorship at the right levels and with the business. And so, number one, making sure you've got the right sponsors. And then secondly, what does success look like for the project? Are you clear on the goals, the vision, the mission? What is the business expecting? How do you measure and report on success? So keeping that connective tissue across the business and with those stakeholders is super important. As mentioned, it's really, really important. One of the common things that comes up in my conversations is with teams and organizations who are moving to the cloud or building cloud solutions, really need to not be starting this journey because they've been told to. They really need to understand the why. So having that value proposition is super important. So what's the benefit of the cloud? How is cloud helping you? Is it helping drive new innovation? Is it a quicker time to market? Is it bringing costs down and so on? So super, super important to have that. Of course, as with anything, it's important to have the right team around you for success. But I bring this up just, more importantly as well, if you're moving from existing teams that perhaps don't have a background or skill set in cloud, it's really important that you've got the right set of skills and diverse skills around you to be successful. And so whether that be upskilling existing teams to raise their knowledge, to bringing in people from outside that have worked on real-world cloud projects, having that mixture of knowledge and skills will be important for you to be successful. Think about development best practices. So are you in a waterfall world today? Are you moving to agile? What type of agile are you using? Again, these are sort of fundamental things about really sort of pivotal to success. Learn from others, and I'll say this again: learn from others. This thing called cloud, as mentioned, I've been in and around cloud since about 2005, and so really, it's important to learn from kind of companies and teams that have built real-world cloud solutions. So whether that's bringing in resource within your team to support your efforts, or even bringing in just external consultants for moments in time, that's really, really important for you. Stay close to the project and fail fast. So if you're, whether you're a team lead through to an executive that perhaps is running a team or an organization running cloud projects, it's important to stay close to the project and fail fast. So experiment is good, but if things aren't going in the right way, it's important to iterate and learn super quickly. And then finally, going back to sort of the original point about being clear on the sponsors and what the business needs. It's equally as important to stay close to those sponsors ongoing in terms of communication. And the biggest gift I would say is, like anyone, avoid surprises. So no one wants to hear that you're 6 months behind schedule, and that's the first time that folks are hearing it. So stay close, keep open communications. So that, if nothing else, these would be sort of the summary points I would kind of ground us in as we drill through some of the other content today. So with that, let's, as mentioned, one of the conversations I tend to have with folks is, what is your motivation to move to the cloud, and do you understand that conversation when you get challenged? And so at times, it's not an inconsequential amount of folks that I speak to who are building and working on cloud projects actually don't have that elevator pitch or that deep knowledge of the why cloud. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time just grounding us on, certainly from Microsoft's perspective, how we think about cloud and with the Microsoft Azure cloud, just to make sure we're kind of raising that knowledge level of cloud, why cloud, the benefits, and so on. And that's super important for you as another sort of key bit of advice I would pass across to everyone listening here today, is just getting that fundamental knowledge. So with that, just let's share a little bit of the data for those of you perhaps are thinking about moving to the cloud or are being pushed for transformation strategies or even working in the cloud. Here you'll see from our analyst friends some information around, so what are the driving forces behind digital transformation. So As an example, data, of course, the data explosion, data is expected to grow to around 44 zettabytes in 2020 and 163 zettabytes annually by 2025. So that's an astronomical size and an explosion of data. Analytics. So of course, sitting on top of that data, you want to drive meaningful insights. So analytics is expected to be a 200 billion global market. And in terms of anticipation of cloud spend, $1 trillion in IT spend invested. So you can see sort of some of the drivers and the size and magnitude of investments. Another key point, if people thinking about the move to the cloud and not looking to innovate or disrupt or transform, this is an interesting one here. So in this slide, you can see that looking at some of the Fortune 500 companies, 52% of those companies are in the Fortune 500 in the year 2000 or no more. So, it's super important that we continue to innovate and transform. And we're seeing here for CEOs, 76% of them are looking for technology advances to help digital transformation. But kind of grounding us in realities as you're thinking about building projects, it's important to remember that the good practices and the rules that you all follow and know, building software solutions today don't necessarily go out of the window when you move to the cloud. So when you think about digital transformation, it's important to learn from the past as you look to the future. So I mentioned, sort of a super macro level, some of the key drivers enabling transformation is cloud, data, and AI. And it's super important when you think about, obviously in my particular case, working at Microsoft and Microsoft Azure Cloud, but it's important to understand not only the motivation to want to transform and how cloud can help, but having a good level of sort of peripheral knowledge of the details behind sort of how the cloud itself can help and the opportunity around the cloud itself, the service offerings, the ability to be nimble and innovate, the capabilities. So having that, irrespective of the level that you work within a project, whether you're a senior level executive to a manager to a developer, it's important to stay close to some of these data points. So when I think about sort of Microsoft's point of view, and when we think about the Microsoft Azure Cloud, I just wanted to share a little bit around sort of grounding us and how we think about the Microsoft Azure Cloud. So at the core, of course, when we think about cloud is Microsoft Azure, but also other tenants that we talk to when we think about the Microsoft Cloud is things like Dynamics 365, of course, Microsoft Office 365, and now the Power Platform, and even gaming sitting on top of the Microsoft Azure Cloud. The key point here is that cloud has been around for a long time, and the Microsoft Azure Cloud is very mature and obviously is running mission critical businesses today. And so you should feel comfortable in terms of where we are with cloud and its capabilities and robustness and also its maturity. Of course, cloud is enabling transformation. And so when we think about the Microsoft Azure Cloud, we think about it across being productive, hybrid, intelligent, and trusted. So from a productive perspective, with the Microsoft Azure Cloud, we have 100+ services. We support a plethora of development languages. And of course, we embrace open source. Key, of course, when you're looking at moving to the cloud is having a hybrid scenario. So it'll be super, super important to be able to, of course, there's the aspiration to move to the public cloud, but of course, there's going to be a requirement to also support on-premise as well. So with hybrid and things like Azure Stack, you get the best of all worlds of being able to move to the cloud, maintain investments on-premise, and even looking at things like private cloud. With intelligent cloud, of course, you've got with cloud, the ability to consume data. You have things like virtual machines, compute power, and so on and so forth. But of course, intelligence and being able to build intelligent apps with things like machine learning and artificial intelligence is super important. Of course, point of mind for all of us is things like security and compliance, and you can see here, today, things like we work closely with governments. We have 90% of the Fortune 500s running on the Microsoft Azure Cloud. These are super important things to remember because you will get challenged of the why cloud, why did you make these choices, and so the more you're informed, the better. Let's talk about data. Of course, we talk about the data explosion. So this gives you a feel for the Microsoft Azure data landscape in terms of build out. So everything from SQL to NoSQL in there. But what about also big data? So we also have support for things like HD Insight, Databricks, through to data lakes. So again, sort of cutting across cloud and data. And now we'll talk about the data explosion. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about IoT. We're seeing, of course, now with capabilities around devices and being able to offload capabilities to devices. IoT is another major player in the market today, but also is really one of the main key reasons we're seeing huge data explosion. And so interesting here to talk about IoT. You're seeing that expectations are, if you listen to the analysts, 80 billion connected things by 2025, 130 billion in new monetization avenues due to IoT. So you can see data and IoT as an example is huge for us. And then finally, artificial intelligence enabling transformation. So kind of bringing it all together, many of you on the call, if you kind of may already have a background in artificial intelligence pre-cloud, certainly, artificial intelligence, you can pick up textbooks from the 60s and 70s and so on. It's been around for quite a while, but some of the key differences and the key drivers that's making artificial such a hot topic at the moment and enabling new innovation. Of course, number one is cloud, providing that sort of near infinite scale and the pay-as-you-go model. So you're getting that compute power and data as a commodity. That data explosion that we talked about that's happening, you had the analyst predictions. So the ability to be able to almost treat data now as a commodity in the cloud in a price efficient way. But most importantly, beyond cloud and being able to absorb data and drive meaningful insights is advancements in algorithms. And that's really sort of a key driver here, is being able to have the algorithms that are allowing sort of the innovation and those meaningful insights using things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. So in terms of the AI momentum, just to give you a feel from sort of the Microsoft Azure cloud and what's happening around sort of artificial and machine learning, we talk to cognitive services, which covers things like vision, speech, and language. But just to give you a few sort of key breakthroughs you can see here. So 2016, we had object recognition at human parity. 2017, we had speech recognition at human parity. March 2018, machine translation at human parity. And then in January 2018, machine reading comprehension at human parity. And we continue to innovate. And you can see the explosion across vision, speech, and language. So we have over 1 million devs using Azure Cognitive Services. We have 300,000 devs creating digital agents and bots and so on. And even things like 35 terabytes of docs being processed by machine learning. So lots of innovation and lots of really sort of business critical capabilities being built out with artificial intelligence. And you can see here some of the patterns for AI solutions, that whether it be creating a bot to thinking about within, say, a factory, providing alerts for health hazards, health and safety hazards, to assisted learning, through to, of course, currently with things like autonomous vehicles is getting a lot of attention. So lots of real business use cases that are happening. So with that, you've had sort of, again, one of my key gifts I wanted to make sure for anyone working and moving to the cloud is understanding the reason why, understanding the capabilities of the cloud, and being able to have a good dialogue with the business owners or people within your teams of the motivation to move to the cloud. So now we'll switch to part two, which is now talk to some of my personal learnings of working on projects. So, really, what have I learned building teams and building products in the cloud? So let's start with the thinking about when building your organization or your team. Ultimately, you are the leader that everyone looks to. So first off, let's talk about vision, mission, and priorities, which is really, really key when you think about building organizations and building teams. So some of the things about, if you're in a position where whether you have multiple teams or a single team, but you're a manager, you're a leader that's building that out, I would encourage you to work closely across departments and across organizations and with the business to agree what's the vision, mission, and priorities of your team, and also deliverables. So that leads to the next point, which is thinking about then for projects that your teams will work on. Now that you've got that close connection to key stakeholders to the business that are really sort of making those investments and who have vested interest in the projects that you're running, it's important to get clear on, what are the outcomes that you're driving with your technology projects, with your projects that you're moving to the cloud. How are you actually going to execute and go deliver? And ultimately, how are you going to measure success? And it's important to think about measuring success not within just your, say, your engineering or your dev teams or your QA teams, but also at the project level as well. So the key point here is that when you're measuring success, it's looking at different levels. It's building out, whether it be KPIs or OKRs that are key to looking at those measurements. And that also becomes a communication platform with the business. So when you get questioned about progress, when you get challenged that perhaps you're not moving as quickly as you should, all these good things that come with running projects, you've got a common platform and a communication vehicle to talk in a data-driven way. Of course, you need to start thinking about things like, what do you need for success? So, when you're looking at your vision, mission, and priorities, perhaps if you're either if I think about maybe startups that are building new teams or organizations that are growing or even established teams, what are the people, what's the budget and the support that you need? Because perhaps, if you've inherited a team, perhaps you don't have the right set of skills or the staff levels aren't the right levels or the knowledge levels aren't there. So it's important to make those assessments up front when you think about what you've agreed in terms of deliverables. Do you have the right sets of people and capabilities and budgets to support that? So think about things like transforming your organization and team. So what are the 3 to 5 year goals broken out by key milestones? That can be super helpful for you to look at the here and now and look at key milestones. And then you can use that also as a talk track to senior leaders or the business in general that's investing in your team or projects. Super important to have a hiring plan and a team skills review. So, if you're growing a team or you're building a team, what is it you need? And also do that introspection on, if you have an existing team, do you have the right skills, and do a skills review, a skills matrix, and that will help you in terms of helping grow and evolve your team, and think about learning and training as well. What exactly do you need? What's the product vision and what does the customer pipeline look for? That's really important. And the more that you can get close to bringing the right stakeholders and close to the business on the product vision for that you're building perhaps, and also bringing in the end customers to that vision is going to be super helpful to ensure, if you're building software solutions in the cloud, that you're not building something that isn't needed or wanted by your end target customers. What are the revenue targets that you've got, and what does success look like? And so I'm a big believer of having a North Star that's agreed across teams, and having interdependencies in terms of OKRs or KPIs, where there is basically an invested set of measures and that really bring the teams together so that everyone's invested in each other's success. So building solutions in the cloud. So do the fundamentals well and learn from others. So I mentioned that a little earlier on, is that cloud's been around for quite a while. So if you're new to cloud, you're building a new team, or you're building existing solutions, you're moving to new solutions you're building, and you have a level of maturity, it's important to make sure you're super clear on, kind of, do you have the right skills? Do you have the right knowledge? And learn from others. So some of the considerations when you're building solutions in the cloud is, we talked about in part one, what's the motivation to move to the cloud? And I'll say that again, this comes up a lot when I talk to teams or leaders of teams around the reason for moving to the cloud. Having an answer of saying we just needed the cloud solution is not a good answer. It should be, hey, yeah, we moved to cloud because, and here's the benefits it brings to business, here's the benefits it brings to the development teams, and so on. Build an experienced team that can help you succeed. So, it's really important. Again, team is king, of course. Team is what's going to help make you successful. And so, depending on your starting point, whether you've brought on, you get to hire people from scratch, or you're inheriting teams. It's important to make that assessment. Are you set up for success? And if not, what investments need to be made, whether it be new hiring or upskilling team members, and trying to do that quickly up front is really, really key. Design and architect the solution correctly. I cannot overstate this enough, is that if you haven't taken the upfront time to think about the architecture of the solution, you'll pay for those mistakes kind of ongoing every month, every quarter, every year. So take the time to architect the solution. I know that especially if it's an important project and if there are time pressures, there can be, of course, kind of real pressures to move quickly, but sometimes moving too quickly and not architecting the solution correctly will actually slow you down. And it can be really, really hard to undo poor architecture. And then you play that further down in terms of releasing the solution to customers. That's obviously going to have also detrimental effect in terms of experience or performance and so on. What development methodology will you follow? And this is a big topic, and for some, it can be a lengthy topic. But I would say get grounded, bring in folks again that you can learn from. Maybe bring in training companies, but pick one and stick to it for a period of time. And if you want to iterate, don't iterate through the development cycles, the sprint cycles, and so on. Choose your moments to make change. But start with one methodology, learn it well, stick to it. Kind of at least kind of run some water through the pipes to see if it works, and then do incremental change versus just sort of sporadic change. Super important to track the project progress and have contingency. So things will always go wrong, and so. It's, as mentioned earlier on, it's important to stay close to the project. It's important to think about what development methodologies you're going to use, what project tracking you're going to use, and of course that tracking of the project is going to be at different levels. It could be you're tracking everything from the dev and QA motions to you're tracking the backlog to you have a higher level sort of more traditional project plan, if you will, that maps back to the business. So be cognizant that there are different levels of the project that you need to track, and then think about for the different teams how you're going to have the common communication platform, OKRs, KPRs, reporting, etc., backlog, burn down charts, all those good things. But try and think about those things up front. And sometimes they can be put to the side and not thought as being as important as they are, but they really are, especially as you get up and running with the projects. Understand test strategies and how to automate. So, at times, of course, there are needs for manual QA, but it will be really important for you to be able to scale and move quickly is to bring in, automation into the test strategy. So lots of frameworks out there. So I would invest in that. And again, bring in the right people that have used some of the testing framework, Selenium and others are out there. So bring in experienced people or an experienced QA person that can help define the strategy and upskill the team if you don't have that within the team itself. And then finally, don't forget the need for DevOps operations and support. It's obvious as it sounds. That's really, really key to think about that. So next, it's important to understand the benefits of running in the cloud. So being prepared for what I call the on-premise and legacy mindset challenge. So you will definitely at different moments in a project and within your team and by customers be challenged on the why cloud. Especially if you have existing solutions that you're looking to move to the cloud, you'll be certainly challenged on, but wasn't it good enough before? And I feel like this cloud thing is slowing us down or isn't as flexible. You'll have a before of sort of feedback. So it's important to be really grounded in why cloud, and why cloud specifically for you, for your project, why it's important to the business, why it's important to your dev teams. So here you can see, sort of a high level, of course, it's everything from operational agility to being able to perhaps innovate, leveraging service capabilities that would have taken you, kind of man-months, years to build yourself, to moving to a pay-as-you-go pricing model and having near infinite scale in terms of sort of compute power with cloud. So, turn these words into actionable insights as it relates personally to you and to your projects, and be prepared to be challenged within your own company, within your own teams, or also with customers. And so the sooner you get grounded in this and have your talk track and really have your own belief system of and clarity of understanding will be important. So now it's time to get your product to customers. So being prepared for supporting the beta and the live releases. So with that, some of the considerations here, of course, is thinking about if you're running a dev team, whether it's a small number of people to a large organization, there'll be certainly as you're looking to get your solution out into marketplace, there'll be requirements for you to support everyone from your services organization to support to operations. So know that there's lots of demands on your teams, and make sure that you've got the right skills in the team to do some of those cross-team engagements and potentially customer-facing engagements within the engineering organization. And be mindful, we've talked a lot about sort of the project and tracking and being prepared for impact. Be mindful that especially as you're getting into that beta and live, you're going to get a lot of demands from the development teams, and that will have impact in terms of driving whether it be future capabilities or bug fixing or whatever else. So just be cognizant of that. And also, it's super important. The number of times I see, especially if it's new products being built in the cloud, not having the appropriate upskill around training internally, but readiness training for customers on the product and documentation. So that's going to be really, really important. And then another common one I see is that we'll find a lot of work and energy going into building the software solution in the cloud, but not thinking too much about the cost model. So that's really, really important, and thinking about that up front, especially as you're moving to the cloud in that pay-as-you-go model. You're probably, if you have existing systems or legacy systems that are following more of that traditional annual licensing model, you are disrupting the business model in that new cloud pay-as-you-go model. So it's important to think up front what that looks like. And then are you ready to commercialize the solution and make money from it? Have you spent so much time in terms of building out the vision for a new product in the cloud? You've built the product in the cloud. You haven't thought so much about how you get it, how you sell it, and how you get it to market. So that's super, super important. Okay, so how will you price the product? So it's time to make money as we kind of continue our journey. So again, some considerations here, we just touched upon it a little earlier, is what does the business model look like? And also within your product, how do you support the right level of granularity? If you think about, you're building, say, a SaaS solution, how do you provide the right level of granularity within the product to tailor to the different pricing models that the company aspires to make money? That could be, there's a licensing cost, there's a utilization cost, there may be upsell in terms of capabilities and premium capabilities and so on. So it's number one, important to understand what the business model and the pricing structure looks like, and then number two, having the capabilities within your solution to be able to support the business models. So think about that. Again, learn from others. There's lots of great business consultants out there that have worked with companies on moving to the cloud and building licensing and pricing models. So if you don't have the skills within your organization, I would encourage you to do that and do that early. And then also thinking about, are all customers equal? So will you have tiering systems where you'll strike one-off deals to you'll have more general deals? So it's really important to think about, in that cloud model, you have a lot of flexibility, but it's important to really get your arms around, for your particular company and business, how you want to commercialize the solution. Go to market and sales. So again, some more considerations there. How will you go to market with your solution? So now with the cloud solution, has your marketing team moved on? And this is particularly relevant if, for example, you're a more mature company that perhaps has existing solutions or legacy solutions that you've marketed. in the new world of moving to cloud, what does that new marketing muscle look like in terms of talking in the right way about the new cloud solution, but also evolving to things like new and innovative digital nurture campaigns beyond sort of the more traditional methods of marketing the solution. Do you have the right team capable of selling your offering? This is particularly important if, for example, you're building a solution in the cloud as an example, and there's an equivalent on-premise solution. At times, I've certainly seen there's conflict with the sales teams where they feel much more comfortable because they've grown up on selling the on-premise solution and aren't as embracing or feel as comfortable about selling the cloud solution. So do you have the right people? It's great that you've gone and built the best solution that's delivering to the vision and the needs of your customers. But if you don't have the sales team capable of understanding the cloud solution, selling the cloud solution, and talking to the different commercial models, then that's obviously going to be an inhibitor for you. And again, similar as I mentioned before, it's important to be eyes wide open, especially if this is, say, a new product or moving to the cloud and building the solution in the cloud is new to your organization. Expect that you will have to support your marketing and sales teams. So again, have you got the right people, the right sort of demographic of folks that have that ability to support those teams and engage externally with customers? But also the flip side of that is be cognizant of the time demands and the impact that can have on your development cycles. With that, I also wanted to, as I think about cloud, and I looked at cloud as being really sort of super disruptive in the last sort of 10 years or so from sort of a technology perspective. I wanted to make everyone aware of the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace, if you're not already, which I view as disruptive as cloud has been on the technology side. The commercial marketplace is as disruptive on the business side. And so the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace is our cloud marketplace, which really has two storefronts, App Source, Marketplace. Just looking back again to what the analysts are saying, and kind of if you listen to the stats, there are now more millennials in 2020 than any other generation, and of course, a growing population in the workforce around Gen Z. So we're seeing that, if we listen to what the analysts are saying, 67% of business buyers would prefer to gather their own information online and not interact with a sales rep. And the expectation is 10% annually through 2023, revenue will be generated through online marketplaces. So you see, in terms of the changing demographic and changing customer needs, moving to more of an online marketplace and self-serve, self-discovery is really sort of what we're seeing in this evolution. So what that means when you think about engaging with Microsoft, there are now really sort of three ways to sell with Microsoft. You've got the traditional kind of Microsoft seller, you've got the reseller channel, and now with the commercial marketplace, you have the web and in-product experience. And so just to give you sort of a super high level, and I'll share the links at the end, as hopefully as you think about the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace, there are really sort of two personas to think about. There are publishers. So if you're an ISV building software solutions, you can take that software solution and publish it to the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace. And that gives you sort of really that geo reach and that ability to reach customers that perhaps you wouldn't have otherwise done in a self-serve way. And then there's the buying experience. So this is really about the customers. Again, similarly, from a customer point of view, with the Microsoft Commercial Marketplace, we're providing a storefront, really providing an experience where they can come and find, hopefully, software solutions and services solving their problems. And of course, having really best-in-class published offers within the marketplace, helping them achieve their needs. So go take a look at the commercial marketplace. It provides that new digital and online e-commerce platform to be able to go publish and sell your solutions if you have software solutions or services. And then from a customer point of view, of course, it's an ability to go discover and buy online software solutions and services to your problems. So we've expanded that ability to partner and work with Microsoft to commercialize your solutions. So with that, let's just wrap up in terms of sort of some of the kind of things that I would kind of close in that are super important for driving successful projects. So things point in mind for me for success, hopefully kind of pulling everything together that we talked around here today. It's super important as you're building out, kind of your projects, your software deliveries. It's important to have a clear vision and goals. What are you trying to build? What is the customer need? It's really important that whether you have a small team, whether you have an organization that's built up of a multidisciplinary team, that you're working across the business and with business stakeholders. So you're bringing together kind of the business and the technical teams, so that you have really a vested interest from sponsors and people invested in the success of your projects, and a positive and ongoing communication flow. Manage your project. Really, really important to have the fundamentals in place. So how are you going to define your project? How are you going to define the backlog? How are you going to prioritize work? How are you going to govern the kind of the expectations and the estimates around delivery dates? How are you going to manage to budgets? Really, really important to manage the project. And again, if you don't have those skills in the team, make those investments, whether it be full-time employees or whether it be bringing in consultants to help, and hire the right team. I know that sounds simple, but it really is important to introspect and say, depending on where you are, it could be you've inherited the team, you're building out a new team, you're evolving the team. Looking at what are you trying to deliver, building out the skills matrix for the folks in the team. Are you missing skills? To bring them in. It could, again, it doesn't have to be full time. It could be temporary through using consultants. And then what does the training plan look like to upskill the teams if you have gaps? Things point of mind for failure. Again, sort of obvious points, but sort of the counter of what we've said. Not having a clear vision of the project, not having clarity or buy-in from the customers. And potentially also, there could be resistance to change by your end customers. So I mentioned earlier on, it's really important to, if you can, have the customer as an extension of your project team by having, and this could be, you look to work out a commercial agreement with a customer where they are invested in working closely with you as you're building out the project and the software solution. But it's important that you're clear on, kind of your vision is resonating with what the customer really wants. And so the quicker and closer you can have customers as part of your project, so they're giving you real-time insights and influencing your backlog, your roadmap is really important, as well as it being part of your QA experience also. Poor communication. So much as I've said, it's important to have communication within your team and across the different departments and with the business. Poor communication is going to be a big point of failure. Slipping deadlines and escalating budgets. Again, it's important to manage the project. It's important to have manage the expectations. Things will slip, budgets will escalate, but being in control of that and managing the message and having the reasons and the data points why will help make that conversation much more meaningful and impactful. And then finally, not having the skills in the team to be successful. So, if you're in particular, kind of a new team or perhaps moving to the cloud and it's the first time and you don't necessarily have folks within the team that have built cloud solutions, again, that's really, really important. Just like anything, having, within the team, a set of people that you can look to that have been there and done it before can provide the upfront guidance, whether it be how to run the project, to what does the architecture look like, to testing strategies, to here are the things that they can share, just like I'm trying to do here today. Here are the things I did well, here are the things I did badly to share with you all here today, so you can be successful, is really, really, really important. So hopefully today is sort of the start of the conversation. If you'd like to learn more, as mentioned earlier on, you can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter, as you can see on the right-hand side, and you can email me at paul.maher@microsoft.com. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the Microsoft Cloud and commercial marketplace, go to Azure.com and you'll see a ton of collateral there. If you'd like to start to do some examples and build skills, check out Microsoft Learn that has structured learning and pathways. Many of it is free, so you can get up there and start doing some learning modules to learn how to, what are the Azure fundamentals, learn about marketplace and so on and so forth. And then if you want to learn about our vision for digital transformation, go to microsoft.com/industry and you'll hear our perspectives across industry. You'll hear videos, articles, customer stories, etc. So lots and lots of great stuff to go check out. So I'd encourage you to go do that. And then with that, we'll move into our QA in a moment, but I'm going to hand back to our friends from the Reactor team who are going to share a little bit with you about some of the upcoming sessions at the Reactor.
All right, thank you so much. That was great. Yeah, as Paul just mentioned, I just want to tell you about some of the other events coming up from the Microsoft Industries team that we have. Our next one is going to be next Monday, May 18th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. These are all Pacific Standard Times. That one is going to be opportunities in the cloud manufacturing software vendors. Then on May 26th, again, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll have accelerating sales in financial services with Microsoft. And then on June 1st, we will have healthcare partner cloud and marketplace opportunities. You can register for all of these events on our Microsoft Reactor meetup pages. I have the link for our Redmond one below, but I know some of you are probably members of possibly our San Francisco or Toronto, New York, or maybe London pages, some other ones. So you can register for all of these on any of the pages that you registered for today's event on. If you want to join the community or hear about other events we have coming up through the reactors, right now those are all online. Again, you can find those at our meetup page, or you can follow us on Twitter at MSFT Reactor, and we post a lot of our upcoming events on there as well. We do ask today, and we're going to put the link to this in the Q&A section, but if you have a few moments, we would really love for you to take a minute, it doesn't take very long, and fill out our quick survey. It will ask you for an event code. The event code for today's class is, or for today's workshop is 7506. We'll post that in the chat as well. We would just love to hear your feedback on what you thought of today's course, what other types of topics you're interested in, and how you heard about us. Just like I said, some quick questions, so if you have a few minutes, that'd be great, and we will be posting it in the Q&A. All right, and that is it for the upcoming Reactor, some of our upcoming Reactor events. If you do have any questions about today's workshop or some of the other ones we have, you can also reach out to us on Meetup as well. We do check and respond to our messages there, or you can reach out to us on Twitter. So I will hand it back over to Paul. I know that some of you wrote in some great questions, and I will give him an opportunity to answer some of those now. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Awesome, thanks so much. So let me go through. I'm just walking through the Q&A. So thanks so much for adding the questions. So the first one I have is how to keep your team engaged. So it's a good question. So I mean, I think there's at a number of levels, but number one I think is all around sort of what's the mission vision for what you're trying to achieve on the project. So I think keeping people grounded to that, and that mission vision being aligned with the business and the business goals. So why is the business ultimately investing in your team and the project and so on and so forth? Is it kind of a net new area for them to drive revenue? Is it incremental in an existing area that you're working in, and so on? So number one there, that I think is sort of the showing the value of how they're contributing and moving the needle for the business. And then secondly, I think sort of course there's then more at the sort of the functional level, I guess, which is in terms of the actual work that's being done. Sometimes if you perhaps there's project work and development work being done that isn't as exciting, I think it's important, or you have to do support or things like that. I think there it's just about being able to spread the opportunity and share the reason why at times that you have to do bug fixing or support, or you're having to work on legacy code. But being able to, if you think about the way that you define the backlog of work and the teams and how the crews work on the different pieces, being able to kind of rotate and kind of share the opportunity to work on some of the new and fun stuff versus just working on the support of the legacy code or whatever else all the time is a good way of doing that, and super important, quite frankly, because if you don't do that across the team, then all that ends up happening is you have a small number of people that build that sort of institutional knowledge when things go wrong and are willing to pick up the support requests, versus if you just have a sort of then a different segment of folks that you're just keeping working on the fun, exciting stuff, then you don't have balance across the team. Because at some point you're going to have the ebbs and curves of, are you doing greenfield to you're shipping a product to you need to be able to deal with kind of bug issues and live site issues and so on. So having that ability to rotate, I think, kind of in and out is important. And then finally, I think there's things like kind of pair programming, code reviews, and so on, where especially if you've got more seniors and folks that perhaps are kind of have more experience, having them to pair program with folks so you're growing knowledge and they see the value of that. Having constructive code reviews can be super useful. So things like that I think are really, really good ways to keep the team engaged, knowing that you're not going to have the perfect storm of cool stuff to do all the time, but having a pragmatic approach and providing opportunities for learning growth is important. And also training is an important one I'd add in there as well. So setting aside time to really invest in the team. What functions, so Scott's got that one, that's great. Thank you, Scott. Scott got a sample project plan. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly share that. The key thing on things like project plans and so on is thinking about, kind of how do you want to best run the project down to the individual work streams. So of course you're going to get, depending on the size of what you're running, you'll get folks that feel a lot more comfortable with much more of the waterfall project plan at a high level, and then sort of have this hybrid approach of then having things like backlogs and burn down charts and looking at things like Scrum or Kanban underneath. So I'll spend some time thinking about sort of some examples with that. I will put a plug out there. David Starr on my team actually is a Pluralsight speaker. Go follow him. He does a lot of work on Agile. He's actually just released a course on Pluralsight around Agile development. And he talks to the deep details to also at a high level. So he's just done a course on Agile for sort of managers and executives as well. So that could be a good thing to take a look at. But I'll certainly look to see as a follow-up to this, I'll maybe post something on LinkedIn. Let's have a look. I am working as an independent consultant leading digital transformation. It's always challenging for me to get the right sponsor. Any suggestions, please? Yeah, I mean, I think it's really. I think the obvious questions are things like ultimately who is it's asking basic questions like, do you understand and do we know who actually is the department or the person that's investing in this project? And depending on where you are in the organization, of course, as a consultant, you can ask whoever you're direct that you're engaged with. But I think being inquisitive and asking those questions, first of all, I think they're good questions to ask anyhow to see if the team themselves are connected at the right levels. And hopefully your curiosity will drive further curiosity if they don't know the answers, that they will come back and ask the questions. Interesting signs will be, have you had sort of a kickoff of the project? Who are the stakeholders? So, in good Agile terms, are we clear on ultimately who's playing the role of the sponsor? i.e. that's probably someone from the business. Who's sort of the product manager there that's giving probably the direction and detailing the backlog to, kind of basically, if you're doing individual tasks and so on, who's the dev manager that perhaps is giving you direction. So if you can figure out sort of through inquisitive questions, ask those things, saying, say, hey, I'm just trying to understand, how ultimately, we're correlating with the business, how the backlog is being defined, how are these tasks that we're working on being prioritized. I think if you ask those questions, which are all good questions, I'm hoping that you'll be able to figure out sort of who are the stakeholders through the different chains that can help you answer your question. Okay, learn from others who have built on the cloud. Are there any other online resources show better? Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, Scott's covered that. So definitely, just on the resources, Patterns and Practice is great. The Architect Center. Go check out Microsoft Learn also. So a couple of things. Going back sort of a couple of years ago, number one, we really made a huge investment on docs.microsoft.com. And so the quality of those things are great. So go have a look at docs.microsoft.com. And part of that is the online product documentation, including services. Of course, there's also the Architect Center that's got things like the Architect sort of best practices. So go check that out. And then also Microsoft Learn, there's sort of gamified learning, a lot of which is free. So for example, things like Azure fundamentals and so on. So go check that out as well. Lots of AI and data-driven developments are difficult to explain and convince a business sponsor. Any suggestions on this? Yeah, I think that's good. And also I think it's also you've got to tailor the conversation, kind of to the right individual. So for a business sponsor, I think being able to really talk to the value that AI can bring and use examples is probably good. And what's super important is being context switching between a business person and a technical person. What the business sponsor wants to really hear is what new capabilities or how are you further evolving our existing capabilities with what you have. Okay, thank you, Scott. You've covered that one. That looks good. Microsoft Azure is constantly improving. How do you design the optimal map in such a dynamic environment? So, I mean, I think the key thing there is absolutely, and we need to continue to so a couple of things to answer that question. I mean, number one, obviously at Microsoft and with Microsoft Azure, we're looking to really provide a best-in-class platform for you to build solutions on top of, and we're looking to, of course, provide service capabilities to help you innovate and get to market more quickly. But certainly, it's certainly a vast platform and set of services. But I would go back to, number one, start with the, how do you best learn? And so, it can be things like go to, say, docs.microsoft.com and Microsoft Learn. They're really sort of looking to distill key capabilities, the platform and services. So I would direct you there. And then secondly, I'd also say, if you can get learning buddies who can help you as well. So to sort of help you distill the knowledge, I think is also super important. But I would direct you back to Azure.com, where you'll see our service announcements. I'd direct you to docs.microsoft.com, where we've got a lot of great informative insights on the platform and the services. I'd look at, as Scott highlighted earlier on, the Architect Center on the Patterns and Practices site on docs.microsoft.com that talks to different industry and workload scenarios and potential architectures. And then I'd also go look at Microsoft Learn and some of the fundamental training there. And then ultimately, I don't think you need to learn everything. I think the best way to learn is through real world examples. So focus your learning on your current need. I think it's good to keep abreast and do sort of the peripheral learning of the scope and depth and breadth of the platform and services, but then go deeper, in your, kind of on the projects you're working on, and learn those services and those capabilities more deeply through the on-the-job experiences and get good at them. So look, thanks, Maher. We've covered that, so we will share the slides and so on afterwards. And I think I'd reached the end. So unless there's any more questions, I will say many thanks. I appreciate your time today and joining us, and hopefully you found it useful, and feel free to share feedback. And I say this is hopefully just the start of the conversation. So the slides and the video will be shared, and you have the links there. I'll also do some posts on LinkedIn, and if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at paul.maher@microsoft.com, and you saw my LinkedIn and Twitter handles as well. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll call time.